He was 13 years old the first time, and for 2 years after, he went to school every day, ate dinner with his family, and walked the same streets as the people who were terrified of what he'd done, showing nothing on the surface. No cracks, no confession, no collapse. His name was Craig Price, one of the youngest serial offenders in American history. And here's the part that turned a crime story into a crisis. Under the law, exactly as it was written, his record would be sealed, and on his 21st birthday, he would walk free, a clean slate, as if none of it had ever happened. So why is he still behind bars today? Imagine a justice system so certain that a child could be saved that it built the guarantee directly into the law. Do it young enough, and no matter what you had done, no matter how far it went, your record would be sealed. On your 21st birthday, you'd start over. The past locked away, as if it had never existed. That was a promise built on hope. And this is the story of the child who broke it completely. Because this isn't only a case about what one teenager did. It's a case about what a society does when its most hopeful idea about children slams into a child who refuses to honor it. If the last two cases we looked at asked whether a child could feel nothing or feel the wrong thing, this one asks something harder. What happens when a child does it more than once and treats it as ordinary? That's the line that separates Craig Price from almost every case like it. Not a single terrible act. Not one moment that spiraled out of control. A pattern, a repetition. And repetition tells you something a single act never can. Craig grew up in Warwick, Rhode Island, a quiet, ordinary suburb. The kind of place where neighbors know each other by name, where kids ride their bikes until the streetlights come on, and where nobody imagines that the danger might be living a few houses down. Hold on to that ordinariness, because it's not just background. It's the whole reason this case unsettled people so deeply. There was no obvious monster here, no isolated outsider lurking at the edge of town, no figure a neighbor could point to and say, "I always knew there was something wrong with that one." There was just a teenager, a kid who blended in completely, a face you'd pass in a hallway and never think about again. That's the first thread of unease running through this whole story. The threat didn't look like a threat. It began in 1987. A woman named Rebecca Spencer lost her life inside her own home in a violent attack that shook the surrounding community. There was no obvious suspect, no clear motive, nothing that pointed in any single direction. And for a time, the case went cold. It sat there, unsolved, a wound the neighborhood couldn't close. What no one knew, what no one could have guessed, was that the person responsible was just 13 years old. Now think about what came next, because this is the part that's genuinely hard to absorb. I'm not going to walk you through the violence itself. That's not what this channel is about, and honestly, the graphic details don't teach you anything. What matters is the shape of it. Something this serious, carried out by a child, and then followed by 2 years of that same child living an outwardly normal life. 2 years, going to school, doing homework, sitting at the dinner table, walking past the same frightened neighbors, through the same streets where a woman had died, carrying something like that inside you for 2 years and showing nothing. That is the first genuinely disturbing thing about Craig Price. Not only what he did, but how completely he could fold it away and keep living, calmly, right beside the people around him. Most people can't hold an ordinary secret for 2 weeks. He held this for 2 years. And then came 1989, because it didn't stop. In a second attack, a woman named Joan Heaton and her 2 young daughters lost their lives inside their home. The severity of it stunned investigators and terrified the community all over again. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. It wasn't a break-in that escalated by accident. Everyone who looked at it understood immediately. They were dealing with something far darker. But this time, the person responsible left a trail. And here is where everything finally turned. During the attack, Craig had injured himself, leaving cuts on his own hand. A small thing, an accident, in the moment, but it became the loose thread that would unravel the whole story. Because when investigators quietly started looking at the people in the area, that one detail, a local teenager with fresh, unexplained wounds on his hand, stood out. It didn't fit. And in an investigation, the thing that doesn't fit is often the thing that breaks the case wide open. Under questioning, the truth came out, and it came out in layers. Not just the Heaton family, but Rebecca Spencer too, 2 years earlier. The cold case, the one everyone assumed would never be solved. Suddenly, a 15-year-old boy was connected to multiple killings, stretching all the way back to when he was just 13. And that fact alone would have been enough to make this one of the most shocking juvenile cases in American history. But it's what happened next, in the interview room, that made it unforgettable. Because when investigators finally sat down across from Craig Price, they didn't find a frightened, broken, sobbing child. They didn't find panic. They didn't find someone falling apart under the weight of it. They found someone calm, composed, matter of fact, someone who could talk about what he had done without the horror, without the guilt, without the desperate self-defense you'd expect from a teenager staring down the rest of his life. And that calm is the part of the story that explains everything. Rage, investigators can understand. Fear, they understand. Even a cold, panicked denial makes sense to them because it comes from a place they recognize. But this flat, almost casual calm in a 15-year-old sitting quietly among the details of multiple deaths, that was something they had no way to make sense of, nothing to compare it to. It's the kind of emptiness that stays with the people who witness it for the rest of their careers, because it raises a question nobody in that room could answer. What has to be true about a person for this to cost them nothing? And here's the thing, it wasn't just his actions that terrified people, it was that calm face, because that face was exactly what the law was about to protect. Because while the investigators were stunned, the public was about to become absolutely terrified. Because of a loophole no one saw coming. Craig was a juvenile, and Rhode Island law at the time treated him as one. Fully, completely, no exceptions. And that law carried a promise no one had ever tested with a case like this. His records would be sealed, and he would be released at the age of 21. Let that actually sink in. One of the youngest serial offenders the country had ever seen was, under the law exactly as it was written, going to walk free in a handful of years. Record wiped clean, slate wiped blank, as if none of it had ever happened. The law wasn't ready for someone like Craig Price. It had made a promise it couldn't keep. The public reaction was exactly what you'd expect: disbelief, then outrage. A community that had lost neighbors, mothers, children, now forced to face the reality that the person responsible might soon be living freely among them again. An adult, unmarked, walking the same streets. But here is the part that makes this case genuinely unique. The system didn't simply let him go. Because in the years that followed, Craig Price kept adding to his own sentence. Refusals to cooperate with court-ordered psychological evaluations, contempt charges, violent incidents behind bars. Each one carried its own separate consequences, its own additional time. And in a strange, grimly fitting way, the very things that had made him so alarming in that interview room, the defiance, the lack of remorse, the refusal, or the inability to conform to anything, became the exact reason he never walked out that door at 21. Think about the irony of that. The loophole that was supposed to free him didn't close because the law finally caught up in time. It closed because Craig Price kept proving, over and over and over, precisely why he couldn't be released. He was, in a sense, his own evidence. Every new incident was another argument against his own freedom, written in his own hand. And that's the uncomfortable truth sitting at the center of this case. A system built to assume the best about children ran headfirst into a child who kept showing them the worst. The law had been built on hope, and Craig Price was built out of something no one who met him could quite name. So we're left, once again, with the question this channel keeps circling back to. What do you actually do with a child like this? And I don't want to hand you a cheap answer, because there isn't one. A system that assumes redemption is not wrong to assume it, not most of the time. Most kids who get in trouble aren't like Craig Price. They can be reached. They can be helped. They grow into people you'd never fear. The hopeful story we tell ourselves about children is, most of the time, true. But every so often, a case comes along that doesn't fit that story at all. And when it doesn't just break one child's future. It shows us how fragile the whole story really is. How much of our justice system rests on an assumption that a rare few people simply refuse to honor. Craig Price acted alone, cold, self-contained. A danger that came from somewhere inside him that no one, not the investigators, not the courts, not the doctors, could ever fully explain. Whatever it was, it started and ended within him. But the next case turns all of that completely on its head. Because it involves a child even younger, just 12 years old, and a crime committed not against strangers, but against her own family. And sitting at the very heart of it is one of the most difficult questions in all of juvenile crime. Was she the one in control, or was she being led there by someone older, someone she believed she was in love with? Her name was Jasmine Richardson. Wait until you see what she said to the person she claimed to love. That's the video on your screen right now.